Nagakura's men returned as the sun was setting.
ただいま。
Oh, Nagakura, Harada, welcome back. So, how was it? Did you find out who the culprit was?
いや、残念ながら何の手がかりも得られなかったぜ。ただ、襲われた時に殺された大使を連れ帰ることはできたから、言った甲斐はあったがな。それより、近藤さんの容体はどうなんだ？少しは持ち直してきたのか？
Actually, he has a high fever. He can't talk right now.
そりゃまずいな。ここよりももう少し医術の道具が揃った場所に移した方がいいんじゃねえか？
近藤さんも運が悪いよね。
Okita?
あれ？どうしたの？お化けにでもあったような顔しちゃって。まあ、化け物なのは確かだけど。
I thought that something must have been off for Okita to joke so lightheartedly like that. What's gotten over you?
別にどうもしないけど、いつもと違うように見える。
Well, I'm not saying that. The grin was still there, and I wasn't quite sure how to respond to it. Could he really just laugh off something that so obviously had changed him?
あ、僕、平介に用があるんだった。ちょっと行ってくるから、君はここで待っててくれる？
うん。
それじゃ、新八さんも佐野さんも、また後でね。近藤さんのこと、よろしく。
I sighed as I watched him head off towards the back of the compound. Later, I was with Yamazaki discussing what to do from now, and I returned to the common room. With nothing to do, I let my gaze shift up towards the star-specked sky to watch thin clouds drift across the moon. I didn't realize how long I'd been standing there until Heisuke ran up to me.
おい、いるか？
What's wrong?
掃除のやつ見かけなかったか？どこにも見当たらねえみてえなんだけど。
What? What had he meant? Something felt wrong. I didn't like it. He went looking for you.
俺は？嘘だろそれ。俺いつもの場所にずっといたけど、掃除なんて来なかったぜ。
Something was definitely wrong. Heisuke, could you tell Hijikata-san that Okita has gone missing? I have a very bad feeling about this.
だよな。近藤さんがあんなことになった後だし。たく大丈夫なのかあいつ。とんでもねえことしでかさなきゃいいけど。
Heisuke muttered under his breath as he scurried towards Hijikata-san's room. What should I do? I knew that I wasn't supposed to go out on my own without express permission from Hijikata-san, but I recalled how Okita was behaving earlier this afternoon. He seemed so eerily calm, despite what had happened to Kondo-san. I couldn't just leave Okita out there by himself. I lost myself and ran out the door. It didn't matter to me that I was running out of breath, and I just ran and ran through the night. In the middle of a dim pathway, I'd finally found him. His sword was drawn, being swung delicately in his hand, but his fierce eyes weren't playing around. Okita moved swiftly between a group of warriors, piercing a man in his throat before sliding to slice the leg of the man standing right behind him. He didn't even bother to wipe the blood off. He just swung and swung and swung.
この剣筋まさか新選組の起きたか。
ご名答。でも殺される寸前に気づくっていうのはちょっと遅すぎじゃないかな。
新選組の起きたが来た。ここは行くぞ。
バカだな。逃がすとでも思ってるの？
There was no hesitation in his movements.
やめ。
Even the Satsuma, skilled warriors in their own right, were no match against Okita. The man fighting in the street before me was no human. He was an engine of slaughter. Okita. There was no escape. Okita's skill as a human was practically speed and strength of a fury. He became a force of nature. Not one of the men before him would leave that street alive. As the last fell, he slid his sword, still wet with blood, back into its sheath and turned in search of his next victim. Okita! I threw myself into his path.
何しに来たの？
His gaze was almost sharp enough to draw blood. Okita's aura was radiating with a killer's intent. I almost froze in fear. I came to stop you. His expression twisted into something halfway between stunned, surprised, and disgust.
僕を？君が？僕は自分の務めを果たしてるだけだよ。君にどうこう言われる筋合いはないんだけど。
There was a cold fury beneath his words that made my throat tighten. Is this really going to help the Shinsengumi?
決まってるじゃない。新選組の近藤さんの敵を殺すのが僕の役目なんだから。
If you really think it's your duty to kill all these men like this, then why did you leave without telling anyone? You already know, don't you? This is wrong.
僕がしているのはただの死闘だって言いたいの。
Yes, I am. He wanted to kill anyone who'd had a hand in the attack on Kondo-san. That was his reason. I knew it.
そうだとしても、それの何が悪いのかな。
Well,
僕の仕事は殺し合いをすることなんだ。たとえ目的が不純でも敵を殺すことさえできれば問題ないと思うけど。
how should I answer this? I want you to do the right thing. Okita. It wasn't easy to say what I wanted to, but I pushed forward. If I happen to let the wrong thing slip, it may give him the wrong impression from me. But I still felt like he needed to hear this. You said yourself that it was your decision to drink the water of life. That this was the path you chose, to be a fury.
言ったかもしれないけど、それがどうかした？
His glare didn't waver. If you believe in the path you chose, then shouldn't you be trying to follow it the right way?
君が何を言ってるのかよくわからないんだけど。
He looked down, and I was surprised to see pain on his face.
僕は剣にしかなれない。人を殺すことしかできないんだ。正しいとか悪いなんて基準は僕には元からないんだよ。近藤さんのためになるんなら、どんな相手でも切ってみせる。今までずっとそうやって生きてきたんだから。
Although his stubbornness was showing, I could see that the emotions pooling in his eyes, as if this were difficult for him to talk about. I didn't know what kind of life he had lived up until this point, or what kind of thoughts were drifting and colliding inside of him to bring these emotions out enough for him to say it aloud. But if you just think of yourself as a weapon... I took a deep breath. I think that's fine. If he wants to live as a Shinsengumi's sword, it wasn't my place to say otherwise. I knew that, but I don't think you should lie to your own heart.
自分の心に。
I think I understand how you feel. Kondo-san is really important to you. Okita loved Kondo-san like a brother. How could he simply sit by and do nothing after seeing someone he cared about nearly killed? Sitting by his bedside all day isn't going to make him heal any faster. And protecting the magistrate's office isn't going to save Kondo-san no matter what you do. Okita must have felt helpless, and so he turned to the one thing that could give him the control over life and death he so greatly desired: battle. I truly understand how you feel. But please, don't lose sight of who you are. Is it really your duty to let your emotions control you? Is that the kind of warrior you are? The fact that you can only kill people, do you really think that's all you have going for yourself? Okita stared down at me as if I were the most irritating thing in the world for him to look at. But eventually...
ねえ、あんまり生意気なことばかり言ってると、今度こそ君を殺しちゃうかもしれないよ。
How many times had I heard him say he would kill me? Okita!
さっさとどいてくれる？君みたいに分け知り顔で人の心に踏み込んでくるやつって虫唾が走るんだよね。
Behind the cold eyes of his gaze, I could sense a man who would kill without a second thought. Perhaps this would be the time he finally made good on that threat. But even so, I had to stop him. I won't move. If he let his emotions get the better of him, he would surely regret it later, and I couldn't bear to think of him suffering like that. Even if it meant I had to put my life on the line, I would stop him. If you really want to go, then you'll have to kill me first. His eyes bore into mine, and for several very long seconds, neither of us spoke. He could have easily killed me with the sword in his right hand, but his eyelashes shook faintly.
どうしてそこまでできるのかな。僕なんかを命がけで止めたって誰一人褒めてなんてくれないのに。 ただのバカだって思われるだけなのに。それなのに、どうして？
I can't just forget about you.
変な子だよね、君って。
Was I imagining things? His words didn't seem to have the usual snide edge attached to them. Just as the silence began to stretch to uncomfortable levels, I heard a voice.
おい、そこにいるのって掃除だよな。
This voice.
ようやく見つけたぜ。こんな場所まで来てやがったのか。
Harada! Saito-san!
掃除。派手に動きすぎだ。もし他藩の者に見とがめられたらどうするつもりだったのだ。
見つかるようなヘマはしないよ。見くびらないでほしいな。
あんたの気持ちはわからぬでもないが、局長の容体は峠を越えた。命に別状はないだろう。
Really?
信じられぬのであれば、奉行所に戻った後、己の目で確かめるといい。
Okay. Isn't that a relief? Okita?
本当なの、はじめくん。本当に近藤さんは。
俺がこういった場での冗談を好むかどうかは、あんたが一番よく知っているはずだが、これ以上局長にご心配をかけるような真似はするな。
そっか。近藤さん、助かるんだ。よかった。
He looked like he couldn't find any other words. I saw his shoulders relax.
掃除も掃除だが、お前も少しは自重しろよ。
Me being scolded by Harada, the day has come. Under Harada's hard gaze, I suddenly remembered that I'd left the compound without permission. I'm sorry. No sooner were the words out of my mouth than we heard the frantic tweeting of a whistle from some distance away.
気づかれちまったみてえだな。奴らが集まってくる前にずらかるぞ。
We ran as fast as we could towards the Fushimi magistrate's office. When we returned, Hijikata-san was waiting for us. He was not pleased, as the man should.
たく、この大バカ野郎どもが。
Although his words were rough, it looked like Hijikata-san was relieved. He must have been worried about us, especially Okita.
今回だけは多めに見てやる。だが、二度と勝手な行動を取るんじゃねえぞ。
奇遇ですね、土方さん。僕も似たようなこと考えてたんです。近藤さんが助かったから、僕も今回は多めに見てあげようと思います。
My God, Okita!
ああ、そりゃありがとうよ。
ですけど、僕はまだ土方さんを許したわけじゃないですから。
As he finished, Okita's voice turned suddenly harsh, and then spun on his heel and stormed from the room. No. I had left the compounds without permission, or approval. I wasn't sure, though, if it meant that I'd be held responsible as well. My heart was pounding.
掃除が飛び出していかなきゃ、お前も出ていかなかっただろう。となりゃ、掃除が原因じゃねえか。
Hijikata casually passing the blame to Okita.
あいつを無罪放免にしたのに、お前にだけ罰を与えるなんてことはできねえだろう。 ったら少し休め。昼から寝てねえだろ、お前。
I didn't know how to respond. Hijikata-san wasn't usually nice. Thank you, Hijikata-san. I bowed and turned to leave. Nearly at the door and almost out of earshot, I heard him murmur to himself.
結局、すべての責任は俺にあるってことか。
Ow! That hurts a bit. That hurts a bit.